Now, I wouldn't really consider myself someone who heavily plays Ark, or even an expert for that matter. When I used to play this game, damn near like almost every day. I don't think it was at its peak yet, or it might have been, but basically, I never really played where I was in tribes or just having tribe battles, any of those stuff, raids, the whole shebang when it comes to Ark survival. But the one thing that I wanted to be implemented in Arc 1 and I'm hoping would be put into Arc 2 would be a skill tree that a survivor could work towards. Reason behind that was because whenever I'm playing with my friends in our own server, we typically used to build the same way where we just focus on health, strength, crafting speed, maybe a little bit movement speed, and fortitude if we're dealing with something that likes to just stun us like Trudons or that one underwater scorpion. That thing used to scare the hell out of me, by the way. But because of that, there weren't really a lot of diversity within our group, which is why I would hope that Wildcard implements some kind of skill tree that each survivor can work towards to, and not make it where you can split off in that said tree. Like once you're focused on one class, you're sticking with that class. So I made a little skill tree of my own just to come with some ideas of what they could have for the survivors. Each class has 3 of their own subclasses within them. In total, I end up coming up with 5 classes that they can work off of. They are Warrior, Builder, Hunter, Scavenger, and Beastmaster. Now, once you choose a certain class that you want to work towards, you do get a slight stat change where certain stats will be increased and other stats will be decreased. So for example, I did it for the Warriors, have it where their strength, health, and fortitude would be increased, but their crafting speed and movement speed would be decreased compared to the other classes. Hunters, they have plus movement speed, oxygen, stamina, and minus fortitude and weight. The others, I want to put a picture, guys. I'll just show you a picture of my skill tree so then you guys can take a look. So I have to go on and ramble about like what each of them does. But basically, you have a much smaller chance of being similar stat-wise compared to another tribe member. I'm not going to go into heavy details on each subclass, like just giving off the numbers, because even then, I don't know in particular if these numbers are even that great, or if they happen to be OP in the grand scheme of things. But basically, what I'm going to talk about are the general purpose of each subclass within the class that I just mentioned. So for Warrior, you have the High Chief, which mainly focuses on just basically being the leader, just team supportive of the tribe. Pretty much, you end up getting an increase to your damage output, along with the survivors within the tribe also receiving some of the benefits as well if they're within radius. As you advance further into higher tiers, the dinos within the tribe will also have an increase to their damage output if they're in close proximity of the user. But before I talk about the other subclasses, I should go over on how to unlock the tiers within them. So there was 2 different ways that I was kind of stuck on. I was thinking of just, of course, normally leveling up, but I kind of want to make it a bit more interesting, like have it where you find a certain amount of explorer nodes or maybe different trophies, like, you know, what's it called? Argentavis Claw or Rex Skull. I think a Rex Skull is one of them. I don't recall, but just basically finding artifacts, explorer nodes, or I guess if you want to be class specific, make it where that the warrior class had to kill a certain amount of predators, or just killing a certain amount of like different tribe, other tribe members. Not of course within your own tribe, but when you're doing raid battles, just killing other human survivors out there. There's a multitude of ways that someone can be able to level up, but the ones that stuck with me the most would be, of course, leveling up. That'd be like the bare minimum, but there would be other stuff to it, like you have to find so amount of explorer notes. Because other than, I think when I play Ark, explorer notes, just find them, it just gives you a XP gain for a certain duration. I feel like there should be more to it, and of course you get to see more of the lore, but I think they should make it where if you unlock a certain amount, you will be able to increase your tier level. But anyways, that was pretty much the High Chief. Just, increase to the user, then a slight increase to the human allies, and of course allied creatures. Then you have Berserker, which is probably going to be the one subclass that everybody's going to be flocking towards to, because you are pretty much frontlining and destroying anything in your path, which is the main deal for the Berserker class. When you reach a certain threshold, I was thinking about, if anything, 50% or low, you get increase to your damage with melee weapons. But the drawback to this ability is that you also gain an increase to the damage received towards you, which is pretty much the main game when it comes to being a Berserk, that you end up dishing out a lot of damage, but at the same time you're more vulnerable to getting a lot more damage as well. As you get further into the tiers, you gain probably the most specific perk that you expect for a Berserker, other than the damage increase, is that you start having less stamina usage when you're attacking. So at tier 2, it'll be like minus 50% stamina usage, and then final tier would be that you can no longer be fatigued. The next class will be Battle Hardened. When I came up with this subclass, I was thinking about how when I would die to certain creatures because they happen to knock me off of a cliff, and if I don't die from the cliff itself, I'll pretty much be left vulnerable to where just one little breeze will be enough to kill me. So, main point of Battle Hardened is that you gain minus 12% damage received, and also minus 20% knockback. As you get further in, those stuff will increase. Main perk to get into tier 2 is that you can no longer be crippled. So this pretty much solidifies you being the immovable object, so that you won't be so easily harmed or just knocked around, or just be to the point where you have a hard time moving. The final tier, you gain minus 70% knockback. Of course, minus damage received would be also factored in. It would be much higher compared to the former tiers, but main thing is that it'll be much harder for you to be pushed around. Moving on to the next class, you have the Builder, and pretty much you can figure what its main purpose is. You're building stuff. So for the Builders, its subclasses are Craftsman, Demolition, and Efficient. For Craftsman, the focus of this subclass that you end up making your structures that you made be a lot more durable compared to someone who is not a Craftsman. And also a little bonus that oops, sorry about that. A little bonus that you get from being under Craftsman is that you gain a small XP increase whenever you're crafting things. So it gives you more of a reason to just build a lot of stuff, so that you can help fortify your base, and also just keep leveling up, because compared to, let's say, the Warrior, or probably even the Hunter too, you're probably going to fall behind in levels, because they're probably going to be out there killing a lot of dinos and getting a crap ton of XP. So you got to be able to keep up with them so that you can still learn some of the engrams that will be needed for your territory. When you get to tier 2, the new perk that you end up getting will be that you have a small chance of crafting a weapon or armor of higher class. So just let's say you're crafting a long neck rifle, for example, even if you use a normal amount to create a primitive long neck rifle, you have a teensy-weensy chance of crafting maybe journeyman long neck rifle, or if you're lucky enough, an ascendant, just from the materials that you use towards a primitive version. It's not going to be a huge chance, but just having a small chance will be nice in its own right. And then once you get to tier 3, that the odds of that end up increasing even further. I think when I created the skill tree for that one, I wanted to make it where it would be maybe a 10% chance. So 1 out of 10 that you can possibly get a mastercraft from a primitive blueprint, which is basically the goal of Craftsman: durability and possibility of crafting some really good weapons and armor. The next subclass within Builder is Demolition, and the purpose of that one, you're destroying things. You are built to destroy any structures, built to dish out blunt force damage, which, by the way, I'm not sure if they're going to put this in Arc 2. I'm really hoping they will, but I feel like they should really add another club-like weapon, because it's weird that you have a pike. No, you have a spear, and then once you're able to have a smithy, you have a pike, and then I'm not sure there's any other melee weapons that you can say that it's a precursor to a sword, but yeah, like basically what I was saying, that you have metal weapons that you can make, but none like a club. And honestly, with the club, the wooden club, that's actually no, not just a wooden club. You have the cannonball too, but you have to be so high in levels and have a lot of resources to make a cannon and a cannonball that it's really tough to say even included when you're trying to say, oh, we have so blunt force weapons, because you're not going to be able to run to that a lot unless you actually happen to be part of a huge tribe, and you know that's the final thing you've been working towards. But early game, all you have is a regular wooden club. I feel like mid game they should make it where you can learn a mace or something like that, something in that nature. I know I've kind of going off a bit of a tangent, but this kind of goes into what Demolition is supposed to be, and what Demolition is supposed to accomplish, and you can't really utilize as much, mainly because there's really not a lot of options you have for the demolitions. But basically, the main point is that you do more damage to structures, and you have an increase to damage with blunt force weapons. So that would be a wooden club, a cannonball, and that's pretty much it. Which is the reason why I think they should make it where you can craft a mace at some point. They should implement that into the game. For tier 2, the added perk that you get from that is that you end up getting increased damage with explosives, so grenades and rockets. Tier 3 is just an increase to blunt force weapon and explosive, and of course more damage to structures as well. Oh, and also one thing that I forgot to mention about them making a mace, how I would design the mace, I'm not sure what's the best way to go about this, but I want to make it where the mace have just a tad bit more range than a sword, but does less damage than a pike. The only thing that makes it stand out from the sword and the pike is that you have a chance to cripple an enemy for like 2 seconds. You shouldn't go for a crazy duration, because then it'll be way too broken, but I feel like they should make it where you can cripple people with a mace if you hit them enough. And I guess they can have it where you dish out torpor damage as well with the mace too. But the only drawback is it doesn't do a lot of damage. It does less damage compared to a pike. But yeah, with that, and then basically the stuff that goes for demolition, this class focuses on you just being a heavy hitter, not in the sense of just, damage wise. Well, I guess damage, but it's more so heavy hitting as in destroying structures and dealing hefty torpor damage. The next subclass I want to talk about for the builder is efficient. This one, at first, how I made it, I just made where that you just use less resources to craft certain things, but I feel like it could use a little bit more oomph to it. So at tier 2, I'm not sure what was the purpose. I actually should talk about this first, so it kind of goes into what I'll be making tier 2 for efficient be about. But I want to know exactly why they make it where you can't pick up an item after a certain duration. There has to be some reason behind it. I don't know why they made that design choice for it. To me, it makes no sense. But either if they do let people pick up in Arc 2, like you can no matter what pick up any items, then what I'll make for a tier 2 for efficient is that if you were to demolish a structure, you get back all the resources that went into creating said structure. So it's not like how, when a normal person demolishes it, you get like half of the resources put into it. With efficient, you get all of it back. So I thought that would be good for someone who likes to kind of shift things around, just change up their designs for their land. If not, go with that idea for, I guess, a tier 2 for efficient. Make it where you can pick up things that has been placed down even when it's after the duration of you being able to pick up the item. For tier 3, it's pretty much just minus percentage needed to craft a certain item. So again, along the lines of what Tier 1 was about, it just keeps increasing as you get further along within that skill tree. For the Hunter classes, the 3 subclasses I made for it were Stealth, Night, and Dexterity. For the Stealth class, at Tier 1, you have minus percentage of the aggro range. Let's say if you're near a random dino that would try to attack you if you get close to it, the aggro range of said dino will be decreased. So you can get a little closer and not worry about it just, seeing you and start attacking. Or just running away if it's one of those dinos that are generally passive and they're nervous around other survivors. It's pretty much, I guess, the best way to describe this subclass is that it's the ghillie armor without the armor itself. At Tier 2, the perk that you get from reaching there will be immunity to traps. I couldn't really think of too much to add for this because the main point is just to be able to go unnoticed and not be anchored down anywhere. You can just be free moving and not have to worry about traps. For Tier 3, the main perk that you gain is that you can see in dark places, like whether you're swimming into the depths of the ocean or you try to look in a cave or just roaming about at night, you can still see normally like the whole place was lit up. With Night, the perks you get from the tiers within this subclass is that you have an increased damage to torpor, a slight resistance to being knocked out, and the removal of certain movement penalties such as cripples and the decrease in movement while aiming. To be honest with you guys, I don't know why I made this one, since on paper this seems like the perfect recipe for pure trolling madness. Though of course there will be means to ensnare someone with disabilities like regular traps or grabs, slows, and stuns from dinos. But I wonder if the cripple immunity would be too much for this subclass. But hey, let me know if it's too much or not in the comments. With the final subclass, Dexterity, this one is all about improving the user's speed when it comes to attacking. Each tier within the subclass grants the user increased attack speed with melee weapons, increased speed with cycling through your quick inventory slots, and also a decrease to your reload speed. Pretty much one good example I can think of with this subclass is trying to tame dinos through tranks. Basically having the reload time be cut down when trying to knock out a high torpor creature is a godsend. Though very simple with what the perks provide, these should be more than enough for it to make this ability stand out on its own. For Scavenger, this one was kind of a tough skill tree to work with because the main goal of just all these abilities is that they in one way or another help out the tribe. But the Scavenger is more so just player specific, that it doesn't really benefit anyone but the user themselves. For the 3 subclasses, you got Glutton, Survivalist, and Immunity. Now, originally there was a certain ability within Survivalist that was there, but I kind of went to Immunity because I felt overall it felt a bit lacking. So I did make a couple changes to the Immunity class and the Survivalist at that too. So then it can at least feel somewhat balanced. So if you see some difference in the picture that I posted already, that's pretty much the reason why. It's a little bit dated. I wanted to change it, but for some reason my file is no longer there. I just have a picture of it. Don't know why, but if anything, I will edit out the differences so that you can know what each subclasses are supposed to do now. So for immunity, you start out with resistance, but later on gain full-on immunity to poison and diseases as you advance further into the tiers. Along with this, you also gain a high tolerance to radiation, which is a pretty good benefit for, let's say, if you're on Genesis. I think both Genesis has the moon where it's radioactive, so you kind of have to be in some kind of hazmat suit, or well, actually that's the only other option. But until, I guess you could say, if this was implemented. But this, I guess, is more so if for Arc 2, and they for some reason want to update Arc 1, that'd be great. But yes, pretty much this one is supposed to help you a little bit survive in the, not even a little bit, a lot actually, survive in those type of environments, which is pretty much the purpose of this subclass, to help alleviate the annoyance of starting off in just hazard, well, first starting off in the swamp area, or just from ground zero where food and materials are a bit scarce. But then as you make it further into your adventures and dealing with more dangerous surroundings, those new benefits I mentioned earlier will help you in your survival. The only other thing that was a thought for me as an inclusion for this subclass is to make the physical attacks to be laced with poison. Don't know whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea, but again, just let me know in the comments. For survivalists, this subclass is geared toward just generally just surviving in different harsh climates, and also a little bit with the predators. The new change I added to this one will be in effect at tier 2, but just at tier 1 you just get minus 30% effect from weather condition. Then at tier 2 it increases even further with the added benefit that you now can be able to sense if there's like any predators near you. Just like how the Parasaur, they have that ability how they can sense danger. You gain that ability as well. You have like a little radius to where you can see, like, I guess a little outline. I'm not sure how it would be implemented, but you can see if there's any predators nearby that will just try to attack you. And then at tier 3 you gain immunity to weather condition, and also that range for that predator sensor gets increased even further. For the final subclass is Glutton, and the main benefit you gain from this is that you have an increase to the effects and the duration to the consumables. Though obviously heavily reliant on having a fridge full of consumables to consistently benefit from it, the same buffs you will receive, I kid you not, will be well worth it. Your survivor over here will be looking like Major Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist, just straight flexing on them alphas. They won't even see it coming. Moving on to the final class, you have Beastmaster. This one is strictly meant for human and dino interaction. First subclass that I want to go over is Nurturer. This one just focuses on just having an increase on imprinting effect and just having a decrease in maturation process. Nothing else is really added to this subclass. It's just focused on just imprinting and maturation process. That's all that's really needed for that one, because you can raise up a high powered dino pretty easily once you have a couple of high level dinos that you can use to pass the better stats off to their offsprings. That's all there is for this subclass, though something else that came to mind for Nurturer is the addition of a small boost in mutation odds, which I guess you could say is the cherry on top. For Instinct, this subclass focuses on just increasing the effects of every dino's ability. Like, let's say for first thing that comes to mind is probably the Yudi, where it has that roar that I guess fears smaller dinos. With the Instinct, those abilities get increased even further, and the duration will be increased as well. I remember before, like, you also have Allosaur that have that pack bonus, or even for the wolves or raptors, they're probably the best example because you kind of need them in the pack. This subclass just focuses on improving those set abilities and make them even stronger than what they were. Moving on to the final subclass of this whole skill tree, you have Tamer. The main point of it, I guess, to really talk about for the Tamer subclass is that you have an increase to the taming effectiveness, and you also gain a small increase to pack bonus damage depending on the amount of dinos that are near you. The percentage may be increased a bit further, and it doesn't have to be predators that gain the pack bonus damage. It can also be herbivores too as well, that as long as they're within a certain radius of the user, they have a small increase in damage. So let's say, for example, I'm thinking for tier 1, maybe have it where if you have maybe 10 dinos near you, they gain like maybe a 3% damage increase. That may be kind of small, maybe 5%. And then at tier 2 you have maybe 15 dinos, and they gain an increase to their damage by about 15%. I'm throwing out numbers. Just basically it's along those lines where if you have a certain amount of dinos with you, and it doesn't have to be a predator, they can also be herbivores as well. As long as they're part of your tribe and they're within your radius, they gain a small pack bonus damage. And that's going to be the case for all the tiers within Tamer. So you have that, and then as you advance further, you gain a higher percentage of taming effectiveness to the dinos that you're trying to tame. This one, I try to make it where it's kind of a mix of Nurturer, where you do gain a bit extra for the dinos that you're with, just, you know, the one that you're trying to claim. But at least with Nurturer, you can keep increasing the stats even further and further. Whereas with the Tamer, it's just pretty much with the first down you see, and then that's pretty much it. It's not going to be probably as beneficial when it comes to that regards compared to the Nurturer. But at the very least, the Tamer gets a little pack bonus damage with the downs that are with them. So it's kind of more like a mix of offensiveness and maybe, if you want to say, a little bit of support. Whereas Nurturer is just straight support, just making the dinos as strong as they possibly can. Again, if you guys have any thoughts about this, please leave a comment down below. I'm hoping that Wildcard is doing something similar like this. If not, I think we should push towards them having a skill tree, because I really do feel like something like this could be beneficial to Arc 2. Just for the sheer fact that when you're in a tribe, you want to at least have some diversity amongst the other tribe members. And I think a skill tree that you can only solely focus on one aspect could end up giving that. But anyways, that is the end of this video. If you guys have any opinion that you want to share about it, just remember, like I said, leave a comment down below. If you like the video, leave a like. Other than that, I will catch you guys later.